from Special School District of St. Louis County, Lunch and Learn. Today, we're so excited to have Jennifer Hulme here with us from Hulme Resources. Just a few things about the Family and Community Engagement Department. Our mission is to partner with students, families, and staff to support students' specialized academic, social, emotional needs, and to promote self-determination, equitable opportunities, and authentic inclusion. This webinar is being recorded, but the sessions are being monitored live through YouTube as well. The comment section on YouTube, you can have questions and our moderator will share that with the presenter. Please remember that webinars can't be guaranteed as confidential, so don't include any share any identifiable or sensitive information about your family member or loved one. If you require additional assistance, please chat with the host. I will be hosting on one end and we have someone on the YouTube end. Closed captioning has been activated and a recording of this webinar will be available in about a week. Another word about closed captioning. If you are in need or would like to have closed captioning in a different language, click on the three little buttons on the More on the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, wherever your direction bar is, and then go to captions and then caption language, and you can pick the language that you'd like the closed captioning in. And now I'm going to introduce you to Jennifer Hulme.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for having me here and for everybody that's on live right now. And for those of you that are going to watch the recording, welcome, future welcome. My name is Jennifer Hulme and I am the Executive Director for Hulme Resources. We are an agency here in Missouri. I'm here today to talk about alternatives to guardianship and the grant project that we are able to provide to anybody in the state of Missouri. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what we do. Next slide, please. I'm going to just jump right in. Our 3-year grant project. So that's really what I want to focus on today, and some information about guardianship and alternatives to guardianship. We were awarded 2 separate grants from the Missouri Developmental Disabilities Council. We are on year number 2. And what we do that would be of interest to you is that we provide one-on-one consultation for individuals and or families who are exploring options to guardianship. We can provide in-person, hands-on support to walk through the steps of wherever you're at. We can make referrals to, legal aid. And then the other grant that we got is to provide trainings and resources for educators in Missouri. So we travel all over the state and talk to different school districts about guardianship and alternatives to guardianship and how it fits into their school setting. The one thing I do like to always stress is that we do not provide legal advice. Nobody on our staff or myself was smart enough or rich enough to get a law degree. So we don't have that, but we do have some really good resources to refer you to. Okay, so let's jump into it. One thing I like to start off with is to talk about presumed competency. Everyone is presumed competent to make choices about their own lives when they become an adult, unless the court says otherwise. So when somebody turns 18 and they have an intellectual or developmental disability, when they turn 18, they are presumed competent unless the court says otherwise. So that's something that I always like to kind of ingrain into people's brains going into this. So what is guardianship? One thing that I've found as we've kind of traveled across the state is that a lot of people don't know exactly what guardianship is. And it means different things in different states. So guardianship really is when a court removes a person's right to make certain decisions and assigns that responsibility to somebody else. Just in a nutshell, that's pretty much what it is. So this is the thing that gets people. They don't understand sometimes that these are the rights that are removed if they go into a full guardianship. And also as a parents need to know that these are the rights that are removed of their adult child, and that responsibility stays with the parent. Where to live, whether or not to marry, whether or not to work, how to spend their money, who they're going to be friends with, whether or not to seek medical care, who the medical care provider will be, whether or not to vote, or enter into any contract. So all those are totally stripped away and are the responsibility of the guardian. A lot of times people think it's guardianship or nothing, and that is not true. There is a lot of options. So we're going to kind of talk about some of those other options. The next step down, so the least or the most restrictive would be full guardianship. The next step down would be limited guardianship. And so limited guardianship is basically when a guardian makes specific decisions on behalf of an individual, but the individual retains certain rights. So they can keep their right to vote, or they can keep their right to drive or to get married, but that still has to go through that formal court proceeding, and the judge has to, agree that yes, this person, I'm signing off that this person is able to keep their right to vote. So it still has to go through that whole process through the court, but it's a lot more limited. So they have some of their rights that they're able to keep. Conservatorship. This is always a fun one because conservatorship means different things in different states. We've all heard of the Free Britney saga, and that is, they talk about conservatorship all the time, but conservatorship in California means guardianship, full guardianship. Conservatorship here in Missouri means conservatorship is like guardianship, but it's only over financial affairs. So conservators is a small is a similar to guardianship, but differs is that it deals only with the financial affairs of the individual. They're appointed by the court, so it still has to go through that court process. And it's found that the person does not have the capacity to manage their finances, or balancing a checkbook. Now, this is the thing. The conservator must report and seek approval from the court for expenditures. So you still have that very formal having to, go through the court for all these financial obligations. The conservator has no authority to make decisions regarding another individual's personal affairs. So it's only over financial affairs. They can't decide whether, they can't have a say in whether the person's going to get married or drive or anything like that. It's only over those financial affairs. And again, has to go through the court system. So it's still something that has to be very formal. Misconception. Again, through talking to a bunch of teachers, administrators, families, everybody under the sun of our beautiful state of Missouri, parents do not need to become guardians of the adult children in order to stay involved. I think a lot of times there's that big misconception that if they still want to be in their child's life, they have to get guardianship or some form of guardianship. It doesn't directly address the basic support needs of the individual. So there's kind of that misconception that if somebody gets guardianship of somebody, that that's going to allow them to get the support needs automatically given to them. I've heard many times, oh, this person needs a guardian because they need to be put into a residential like group home or a ISL or something like that. Guardianship should have nothing to do with support needs. Okay, so it might help to advocate for them, but they can do that. They can get that without a guardian with proper planning. Options and alternatives should not be based on the individual's diagnostic label, but rather an individual's strengths and specific decision making and protection needs. So we shouldn't hear things like, oh, well, this person has Down syndrome, therefore they need a guardian. That should not be the reason that somebody has a guardian. What does the Missouri statute say about alternatives to guardianship? This is really very interesting. So, back in 2018, which I was listening to Deb talk about this, I think last week, and she's like, it doesn't seem like that long ago, but it kind of is. Um, the Missouri statute, they changed their wording. And what they did was they changed the language to allow for including the least restrictive alternatives to guardianship to be explored prior to filling out documents for guardianship. So in reality, according to the Missouri statute, and again, I am not an attorney, don't play one on TV, but in Missouri, you're supposed to check out all those alternatives and prove that those are not working before you go through that guardianship process. And so that's what the Missouri law says. Just wanted to throw that out there. So alternatives, there are quite a few alternatives. These are the main ones that I'm going to go through. There actually are some other alternatives that are available that kind of fit in between. But the main alternatives, so when you're talking about like the most restrictive to the least restrictive in terms of the alternatives to guardianship, this is what it would look like. So you would start with power of attorney. And power of attorney is one of those funny things that has a lot of misconceptions also. Um, one of the main things is because it has the word attorney in it, everybody thinks, oh, I have to get an attorney to go through those. And that's not necessarily true, although I highly recommend going through your legal counsel for anything like that. But there are forms that you can fill out online. It kind of gets into a little bit of a gray area because basically you are somebody is entering a contract, right? And if a lot of parents want it to take place immediately, so if that person's entering into the contract, they're saying, yes, I have the capacity to enter into this contract, but then all of a sudden they don't have the capacity once that power of attorney is put into place. So there it gets really dicey. I like to just keep it very simple. And if it gets too complex where it's something where like I don't know if this person really understands, we turn it over to Missouri Protection and Advocacy or another local legal aid. So power of attorney, there's only two types of power of attorney in Missouri. There's medical power of attorney, and then there's also financial power of attorney. And they are two separate documents. Okay, so you could have both, but you have to fill both out separately. Um, you can have one and not the other, and vice versa. You can mix and match it with one of these other alternatives also. But for power of attorney, basically over the medical, you would have that filled out and then you would have to have it notarized. The thing I always tell people to remember is, when you're having it notarized, they're signing off on that this individual agrees that they're giving this, power of decision making over medical or financial to the age, they call them the agent. If the notary questions it, they don't have to sign it. And that's happened before. So you have to be like very sure that this is something that works for you and your family. The other thing I do want to say is that when you do have it notarized, you also have to have two witnesses come with you that are non-blood related. I honestly didn't know this at the very, very beginning when we started this, and a family we were working with went to get it notarized, and they called me up and they're like, we were at the library and they could not sign it, so we just had like two random people from the library be the witnesses, and they were okay with that. But just a little tidbit so you know. The other thing about power of attorney, a lot of people ask, what's the difference between power of attorney and guardianship? Like, why would I get guardianship when I can get power of attorney or vice versa? Power of attorney, the person who's under that power of attorney, who's having the decisions made for them, can get out of it at any time. So it can be, they say under the law that it can even be verbal, that they say they do not want this person as their agent anymore. But usually there's a form that can be filled out, and that's been done in the past, people that we've worked with. But just know that it can be removed by the person at any time. And so I always tell families, if it's kind of one of those sometimes contentious relationships, and they might have that information, power of attorney might not be the best fit, because they could actually use it to kind of like manipulate and hang it over your head like, oh, I'm going to get that removed. So that might not be the best choice. So that's power of attorney, just kind of in a nutshell. Supported decision making is one that, we hear quite a lot about. I think supported decision making is such a wonderful, wonderful tool. And I think we like to slap labels on things and make it sound more than it really is. Supported decision making is not complex at all. So, supported decision making is basically the individual is the final decision maker. So the individual with the disability is the final decision maker, but they have a circle of support around them of people of their choosing to help them make certain decisions. So let's say they need help with decisions about finances. Okay. And maybe they don't want their mom and dad to be their decision support person for that. So they pick a family friend who happens to be a banker and has really good financial knowledge. And so that person they have listed on their supported decision making agreement to be that person that they're going to go to for help making the decision in the areas of financial. And so in theory, according to the Missouri statute, banks should honor that supported decision-making agreement that's been notarized as this other person being able to be with them and get the information and everything to help them make that decision. And it goes in any entity. Same with healthcare and education. We've done a lot of supported decision-making plans for students when they turn 18 to have actual supported decision-making plan that's geared towards the education decision-making. But a lot of people aren't educated on this yet. So you would like to think that you could walk into a bank and hand them a supported decision-making plan, and they're like, oh, wonderful, we'll put that in their file. They're going to look at it probably and be like, what the heck is this? So that's where this education piece comes in. And I'll talk about that in a little bit about our project too, and how we can help out with that. Supported decision-making, there's no formal form for Missouri that has to be used. Missouri Protection and Advocacy has a really good form on their website. And then we have some ones that we're kind of working on in terms of being able to get that out to people that's a little more simplified. So it doesn't have to be on anything like a formal form. It can be a Word document and just notarized and you're done. Shared bank accounts, representative payee, release of information forms. Those are all alternatives to guardianship instead of going right into like the formal guardianship. You want to do the least restrictive, just like special ed, least restrictive, work on those first. If that doesn't work, then work your way up. And this is just one of my favorite cartoons because it just talks about dignity of risk, and we're all guilty of it, whether we have children with disabilities or not, that you want to protect them. You want to keep them, protected. But honestly, with guardianship, it's not a quick fix. It's not going to protect them from the evil of this world. Evil still happens. So I just like people to not have that false sense of security through the guardianship piece. It's really a matter of pre-planning and making sure that these things are in line and people have skills to deal with some of that nasty stuff that happens in the world. Just a quick word about post-secondary education, employment, and independent living. I always like to throw those out there because those are the three main things in IEPs from, kindergarten, preschool, kindergarten on up to graduating that an IEP is focusing on. Any goals that they have should be a step that's helping them build a skill towards post-secondary education, employment, independent living. So my question would be, why not have goals in an IEP that are formal, that work on decision making and building like a supported decision making environment? So that's one thing that we talk about with schools, is building that into the IEP, building it into the classroom. That's something they already do naturally anyway, but to make it a formal goal, I think is really something that should happen at that transition age or earlier. Again, supported decision in the making in the classroom. This is all stuff that they already do anyway. And so we just kind of talk about, and we encourage students and families to kind of talk about this at IEP meetings and making this into an IEP goal. Earlier, the better. You cannot talk about transition too early. I have talked about transition planning to, families with a 6 or 7-year-old. It's never too early. That's my preachy point of today. And then again, working on supported decision making at home in the community. I'm sure as parents, you guys do this already. Just keep doing it, and make it a normal thing for them to start making their own decisions and gathering information from their circle of support on making certain decisions. The one thing that Deborah and I were talking about that we wanted to stress is that supported decision making can also be used in a full guardianship situation. So don't think that you can't use supported decision making if you're in guardianship. And I should have given this disclaimer before. We are not anti-guardian. We realize that guardianship is needed in many situations. But even within that guardianship, people can use supported decision making, and it can also be used as data if somebody wants to have their rights restored, to go to the judge and be like, hey, we've been working on the supported decision making plan for a year. They've been very successful, and that's going to go a long way. Okay, so we have a grant program, as I mentioned at the beginning. It's free, and all you have to do is fill out this form on the JOT form or the QR code, and it comes right to us. We're usually in touch with somebody within 24 to 48 hours, and we will help kind of explain this, because this is a very short presentation, kind of explain all those alternatives. If it's one that you're interested in, which one is the best fit, we'll help walk you through that. So if you need help filling out and facilitating that supported decision-making agreement, we can help with that. We may be able to help with power of attorney paperwork, but if it's stuff that we feel is, a little bit too gray area, we'll refer you to a legal aid or something like that. And that's really it in a nutshell. I really want people to take advantage of this grant program, because we have people who really want to sit down and help directly with that, to make sure that you're getting all the information that you need to make that informed decision. And then just some more resources there. Our grant project website. I have a very simple, that second link is like an online self-paced course that talks about just the very basics, kind of what I talked about today, that you guys are welcome to get on and do. Again, that's free. And then of course the MODDC and their guardianship resource guide is excellent. Mo Wings has a great booklet on their website. And of course, UMKC life course tools. They have some really great life course tools for planning that piece out and kind of putting it down as a visual. So that's it. Does anybody have questions?
While we're waiting for the questions, I just want to reiterate a couple of things that I really appreciated that you covered. That whole rights that are removed, and then that it is my responsibility as the guardian to make all of those decisions. And as parents, our goal is to make our children more responsible. And so that's a really big distinction, that we're not only removing rights, but it's really then my responsibility, and I'm taking responsibility away from my child. And that's not something that we typically are looking to do to the
Yeah,
best of our ability. Same thing with the misconception that
right.
guardianship does not provide all the protection. It's not enough of safety because the court has taken away those rights. It's my responsibility to then ensure those. And the guardianship really situation really doesn't do that. It does take things like those conversations about supported decision making. And then the last one, the alternatives. As I'm going through this, and just in my life, I look at power of attorney and using supported decision making, having people who are more knowledgeable than me help make some of those decisions, having somebody else on my bank account in case something happens. Those are all really good steps for all of us to take. And we
That's the
shouldn't
thing,
think
we
of
all do
them.
it. Mhm.
Yeah, we shouldn't really think of them as anything but really helpful protections that we
Yep,
can get our affairs in order for our children, even as they age and transition to adulthood. So I just wanted to, point those
100%.
couple of things out that I really appreciated. And then that we start early, that we start talking about good choices, learning from choices that were not so great, even with our toddlers,
Yep.
and to build those skills up. So I thank you for addressing that. I don't know if we have any questions from our YouTube audience. Okay, no questions. So just to wrap this up, I wanted to thank you again for being number 5 in our 6-part Lunch and Learn series. We kind of focused on transition. We have one more coming up. The St. Louis ARC is going to come and share with us the services, supports, and resources from their next program, which is April 24th. And always, we want to make sure that everyone understands and is aware of all the resources that the Family and Community Engagement Department provide. We have other virtual workshops. We have a sign language class that we have done twice this school year, very popular. Our family cafes. I have some more specifics for some of these other opportunities. We also have a resource hub. It's located at North County Technical High School, that is a satellite food pantry and a place where families can come and sit down with us. And we have some computers available to help them gain resources and information. But then we bring in some community partners as well. We've got the Community Action of St. Louis County. We've got them coming in March 1st. We have 3 more dates where they come and they can help with utility assistance or weatherization. We have the Higher Education Consortium that really focuses on education, career, and workforce planning. And then we have vocational rehabilitation. They're coming in March 1st as well on Friday. And they help, of course, with pre-vocational skills and vocational skills. We have a family cafe, which is a wonderful opportunity for families to gather together and not necessarily gain information on a topic, but really form some community and sit down and have meaningful conversations based on these protective factors that really keep the families engaged and help them problem solve and talk about feelings and things that we all need from each other. If you're new to St. Louis County Special School District, we've initiated virtual open houses. So our virtual open house, our next one is April 18th, and it's just an opportunity to hear more about SSD. And lastly, I want to promote our Family Leadership Institute, which starts in April. It's a great way for families to get more information on the IP process, transitional planning, and some of the other tools that we use. So please consider applying for the Family Leadership Institute. I want to thank Jennifer again today for being with us. We really appreciate this is a topic that is important to all of us, no matter where we are in our planning process. So thank you again, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.